with Steve. Thanks for joining us today, whether it's live or via the recording. I'm Steve Thompson. I'm Senior Vice President for Sales and Marketing here at Apex Digital Solutions. And this is number, I don't even know, 57 in a regular series of visits that we do together on a number of different topics. Today, I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware of a number of different places to go for training and education, for learning and support, for documentation around Microsoft and specifically Microsoft 365. I'll use M365 for some of my examples. But what you'll see is that the whole scope of the Microsoft solution has been brought under one roof. It wouldn't be Fridays with Steve or those sort of old guy vibes if I didn't talk a little bit about where we've come from and how actually, even though it may not seem like it, sometimes that the world is a much, much better place when it comes to documentation and support and learning and education. We'll go through those resources and just kind of opine on a few other ideas for places to go and ways to learn. I have sort of an interesting allegory in my own life right now that I'll kind of use, where I'm having to jump in an area where I know a little bit, but I really have to learn a lot more and sort of polish my knowledge a lot more so that it is much more usable. And so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about where we've come from. Long ago, one of the things that gave me job security was, I was one of those people that had the ability to figure out the support channels, the support resources, and things like that. I'm thinking back to my days at Target stores back in the 90s. And whether it was Blue Book binders from Microsoft, I found a picture of TechNet CDs, right? And TechNet Plus, literal CD libraries of support articles and white papers and things like that. Every month you would get a CD update that we would load onto our machines that gave us a searchable database right local on our machine, right? This is it's not pre-internet, but it was sort of pre all of these resources being located that way. A lot of us would actually take courses via, I think at the time they were called CPLS or CTEX learning centers, Microsoft partners that specialized in learning and education. I actually worked at one for a couple of years as kind of a side hustle, being an instructor, and people would pay big bucks. If I remember correctly, a 5-day course on something like Exchange Server. It was probably Exchange Server 5.5 at the time from our local provider. It was a little company called Benchmark. It was $2,200. And so 10, 12 people a week would pay north of $2,000 to sit in a class and learn about a specific Microsoft technology. Then the goal of that class was not just to enhance your knowledge, but pass some certification exams. I'll talk a little bit about credentials and certifications and kind of the state of the business right now. But back in the day, it was a really, really important part of the world. There's always been sort of this dichotomy of opinion when it comes to certification, right? Oh, I already know it. Why do I have to prove it? Versus, oh, this is an important marker for me as I judge talent and think about who I'm going to hire in my environment. I don't have a sneeze button, but I knew if I muted it, it would pass. So there we go. There's always been that argument about certification, about whether or not it's valuable. I found it valuable. I found it being a differentiator early in my career. I think I passed my first certification exam in 1997, and used it as a tool, in the early parts of my career. We also did a lot of book learning. If you didn't know, you can actually on Amazon, you can do a complete history of your purchases. And my first purchases on Amazon, when it was uh, not just predominantly, but only a bookstore, were certification guides, thick manuals on learning how to be a CCIE and things like that. I also had Cisco certifications at the time, and that was how we learned, right? So this is just kind of a picture into the world that we've come from, where especially Microsoft has always been thinking about how do we disseminate the knowledge that we've gathered by answering support questions and fixing bugs. Actually, the Watson infrastructure, unfortunately, when a Windows machine blue screens, or there's a GPF, or there's an application fault, not originally, but eventually they figured out, well, how about we send that information back to Microsoft? And what it led to was them figuring out what bugs they had to fix based off of what people were running into, as well as creating a searchable archive of, oh, when this, then that kinds of information. And so we've really come a long way. And so what I wanted to do is just spend maybe 5-10 minutes kind of walking through some of the resources that we have in the environment. I'm doing my own production today, so you're going to have to suffer for a second as I kind of figure out how I'm going to present this in the most beneficial way. So you get Steve full screen. Then we're going to come over here and we're going to share my window. And then I'm actually going to change this to make this as big as possible. There we go. So what I wanted to do for a few minutes today is actually walk through some of these sites, some of these resources, talk a little bit about how I use them. And, maybe if there's just one or two nuggets you take away, hey, I didn't know about that, or I never thought to use it this way, I think it'll be time well spent. So the first thing to know is learn.microsoft.com. Here at Learn, they've really consolidated a lot of the things, that used to be TechNet and support articles and product documentation and white papers. I know I've told the story before that for multiple years in my career, there was a white paper on server clustering that was the proverbial Bible in the space of figuring out how to put Windows servers into load balancing and fault tolerance kinds of configurations with failover and shared information. That white paper, I'm sure, in addition to having it electronically, I think I may have even printed it out and just sort of kept it in my backpack because it was the resource for figuring out how to do clustering between servers. I believe I even remember when they first introduced it, it was called Wolfpack and Wolfpack clustering of servers. Something we don't even think about anymore these days, especially with cloud services, Microsoft Azure and AWS. One of the things you don't typically think about is those underlying services being fault tolerant, because you just create a services endpoint and everything else is figured out by Microsoft Azure after that point. So now the training and documentation and credentials, we'll talk about some of those other pieces here in a second, has really been consolidated. One of the things that's key to know is they've also put it into these things called learning paths. I think one of the challenges historically has been, all of training and even some of the certification, it's been like discrete. It's been, here's this package, right? And you sort of try to figure out how to progress through. But what I wanted to show you is a really simple way to think about what you want to learn and how you want to get there. So when I say, customize my path, I want to learn about a specific product. I'm early in my career. I want to do it self-paced and online, right? So really reaching out to people in lots of different stages in their career, what they're looking to learn, and how they want to sort of curate the content. When I taught, there were really two different sort of two different vehicles for education. There were the ones that really catered to professionals sort of in career, mid career, enhancing their learning, taking certification exams. That's that benchmark example that I used. Where I taught was actually more of a career switcher school. 6 to 10 at night, people coming from different industries looking to learn IT, maybe from scratch or from limited knowledge or going into a different area. I found that really enjoyable, helping people kind of for the first time have those aha moments. To this day, I remember the aha moment in a training class, actually in a free training class. In my days at Target with limited budget, I was really good at finding free ones. You'd have to sit through a product pitch and things like that. But I found a free course on TCP/IP and actually CIDR, or classless interdomain routing. And TCP/IP clicked for me, right? I still remember that class because before it actually clicks, it's a little weird. But then once it all falls into place, it makes a whole lot more sense how the routing works and how addressing works. And so to this day, I still remember that free class. So let's say I'm early in my career, self-paced online, Microsoft products, and then boom, here we've got that list of products. I want to go ahead and use Microsoft 365 as an example based on what we're talking about today. What is my experience level with this particular product? Oh, it's intermediate. I'm early in my career. Is there something that you want to focus on, right? So, I'm interested in Exchange. I'm also interested in mobility and security, right? I want to do messaging, and I want to do mobile messaging kind of securely. And so we're thinking now. And here we go, right? So start with the following recommendations. What is Microsoft 365 in addition to Copilot? And we can launch that career path. I just brought us back to the home page, right? So it will craft those paths for you. There's also ones that are laid down based off of the individual products. If I say Entra and Entra ID, we have lots of things that we can go do to learn the product and learn the solution. So learn.microsoft.com training, more and more it's organized into paths and things that walk you through this in a meaningful way. On the partner side, I think you can sign up as an individual. Either way, it's good to know this is out there. I know folks see tons of these badges on LinkedIn. This is where we actually come to do the learning around some of the different badges that we go for, like being a sales professional with Microsoft Teams Rooms. There's a new one for 2024. So me and my whole team are going to be refreshing our badges in this space. Badges and certification kind of they go together a little bit. I think one of the things that I've seen evolve over the last few years is really the gamification of some of this Microsoft, training and education. It's about badges. It's about sharing them to your LinkedIn profile, keeping score. Some of these places will have point systems and leaderboards and things like that, kind of working without a net. I think if I come and look at my expert zone, there might even be, I'm not doing so well, right? I need 1,500 points to get to bronze. It'll show, what I have in progress, what my achievements are. And you can see that giant shared to LinkedIn button. So this is where a lot of those badges that you're seeing on LinkedIn are coming from, whether you use them or not, or find them valuable or not. I think it's important to know where they're coming from. The next thing I want to talk about is blogging. It's kind of funny that this still is a key resource when it comes to product knowledge, updates. Oftentimes you'll see, things around sort of Teams get announced, feature sets that have gone, from some of the test rings to general release. Obviously, Copilot's been all over here. And so blogs.microsoft.com has a lot of this information. I'll take a look at delivering Copilot for everyone. We can see who wrote it, and what you can do is you can actually drill into authors and be able to see what they're up to and the kinds of posts that they're doing. Obviously, Yusuf is very big in the Copilot world, and these continue to be references for all of us in this industry, for announcements, for product information. Sometimes it's a little bit frustrating because there are so many tools and platforms. All I'll say is it's certainly not worse than it used to be. I would even argue that it's better because it's all digital and it's all sort of findable or discoverable. That said, oftentimes they're spread off in different places. Case in point, blogs.microsoft.com. However, Microsoft.com/Microsoft 365 blog. So a number of different places to gather information. Again, here we see Copilot information and different articles around Dynamics and Intune. We have some tools here for search and for following this important information. Oftentimes, these will be referenced by different folks on LinkedIn. I'm not going to show LinkedIn. That's a little dangerous. I only have my live instance to work with. And so oftentimes people I follow will redirect here. I think, one important piece is that differentiation between follow and connect. No, I don't know Ilya in the Teams Room world, one of the leaders at Microsoft in that space, but I follow him. I certainly am watching for his communications, but most importantly, links back to critical information, whether they be on blogs or support articles and things like that. So this is Microsoft Learn and the credentials piece. Certifications, credentials, sort of badging and certifications all consolidated into one space. And so this is where professionals in the industry can come and look for those badges and certifications in the space that they're interested in. Rather than saying all of Microsoft 365, I'll do the same thing and I'll say Exchange Server. That's not really that interesting anymore, is it? Again, sometimes the world has passed me by. Let's just say all of Microsoft 365 then. We can see the exams that are available. And so, SC400, this information protection in Microsoft 365 is a big one. And what you'll see that this is the consolidated information about, hey, what does this examine? Can I schedule the exam from right here? I've got study guides. I've got an exam sandbox. I can go ahead and purchase it. Here are the skills that are measured. If I want to prepare, so depending on how you work, so learning paths are about, hey, what do you want to learn? Here, go do this. This is more, hey, what certification or credential do you want to go get? And then working backwards to say, hey, what is the learning I need to do? And so what this will do is show you the different learning paths associated with this certification for self-paced. There is still instructor-led courses in this space. I don't know if it actually does a search for you on where to go find it. But this is where you will see those local offers around instructor-led training. It works great for some people still to this day. Back in the early days of my career, it was really kind of all we had, other than sort of the books and maybe just doing a lot of reading or a lot of self-experimentation versus all this self-paced learning paths experiences that we have now. Instructor-led was really kind of all we had. I'm sure many of you are cringing at that whole notion of $2,000 for a week of education. And so, it's nice that we don't just have that, have that option. And so, this is an example of one of the popular certifications right now, and how you can use the credential site to figure out what exactly you need to do to get prepared. This opens up the whole certification debate again. A lot of folks, even if they know all of these things without doing any study, because it's what they do each and every day, it's like 50-50. Half of them will happily take the test and get the badge or the certification, and the other half say, I don't need to prove it, right? I know how I feel about it, but it's certainly subject to debate out there in the world. The next thing that's been consolidated to learn is really all of the documentation. Like I talked about, it used to be spread out, it used to be physical, it used to be digital, really, all over the map. And now you're kind of getting a sense. Learn is really the hub of all these things, whether it's training, whether it's certification, whether it's product documentation, even some of the programs that Microsoft does. So here at Apex, we're a fast track partner. And as a fast track partner, oftentimes we need different documentation about how the projects run, what are the source materials and stuff like that. That's all on Learn too. So if I click on Microsoft 365, we basically launch into all of the documentation that's out there. I want to deploy Teams, and then it'll take you to that part in the catalog that is all of the information that you need to go through to fully understand this space. Oftentimes our documentation for customers will link back to these things. There's obviously lots of different places that this documentation takes you as well. But if you want to learn how to deploy Teams and you're a product documentation person, or you're deploying Teams and have questions, this is typically where I come first. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is that actual support experience feel, where you can search for articles. This is really full circle back to the TechNet CDs, right? These are support articles. These are people who initiated questions that ended up getting answered, but then let's publish the answer for everyone in the world. I assume it is still the case, but back when I used to have to call Microsoft support, I know the very first thing they do was search the database, right? Hey, is this guy calling about something we already know the exact answer to? It's pretty expensive Google search or Bing search for a support person to do. If you're on a premier contract, which means a support contract with Microsoft, it's maybe no skin off your nose as long as you have enough hours and enough support calls. I think it used to be $395 if you wanted to open up a case just sort of as a rando without a support contract, scanning your credit card. And so to get to that premier support level. And so now all really just centralized, where I can say, Exchange online mailbox unavailable. And I'm hoping this is generic enough where, I get some hits, right? Here we go. And so now if I drill into, something like this, you get matches with things like error codes and so forth. And this is where, based on an error, based on a bug or an exception or something in an event log, you can come here and pretty rapidly see if it's ever happened before. That's one of the things that I've always coached my teams on. I even coach our sales and marketing team and the organization as a whole on it. One of the things that you figure out in life is you are both special and not so special at the same time. Oftentimes, teammates would come to me and be like, hey, I found a bug. I can't believe this doesn't work, and they haven't fixed it. And I'm like, really? Let's investigate that a little bit. I mean, if you stop and just think about what are the odds that 30 years into Microsoft Excel, one of us finds a de novo bug. It's absolutely possible. It's also eminently possible it's already been discovered. And hopefully there's a fix for it. And so, this is just an example of being able to use people's experiences before. The human experience is driven in a large way by our ability to learn from others without having to do for the first time. And this is just another example of that. So Microsoft community answers.microsoft.com is where all this stuff lives, right? The actual, hey, somebody opened up a case, somebody asked a question, here's the answer, and excuse me, here's how to fix it, or it's a bug, it's on our roadmap, or you have to be at this product level to get the fix for that bug incorporated into your environment. All right, so let's go back to our production meeting here and return to the deck. So that's just, a number of different things that I use as I think about, navigating the world of Microsoft training and education, community and blogs, certification and credentials, badges, and really making sure that I have everything I need to be an expert or help train a team of experts. This is the kind of thing we can help with. I really think of it in that sort of adoption and best practice space. We do a lot of this work with our customers and would love to work with you on a project that looks like, hey, how do I get better at using and leveraging the technology we already have in our environment? So if you're a current customer, reach out to your account executive. If you're a new customer, drop me a note, sthompson@apexdigital.com, or reach out to sales@apexdigital.com. We'll get back to you right away and see how we can get you help, get you engaged. Check out our website for lots of resources. If you want a copy of the deck or that list of resources that I went through, go ahead and just reach out to me and I'll get back to you right away. So that's it for this 57th episode of Fridays with Steve, kind of reviewing Microsoft solutions and how to best learn about them. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.